Hi everybody, how you doing today? This is Tim Guy analyzing some of my documents that I use in my classroom for their accessibility. Just to let you know if I sound a little weird, I am struggling with some strep throat right now, so ignore the raspy voice I have going on. First thing I chose is a PowerPoint I use for notes in my Algebra 2 course. Just wanted to look through at a PowerPoint and see how accessible it could be. You're going to see that there are some things I think are pretty good about this PowerPoint, and then there's some things that are issues. In fact, there's some pretty big issues that I would have to look at in the future if I wanted to use this in an online setting and have it be accessible to everyone, and really in general have it be accessible. First thing, I'm in the outline view right now. I actually have never been in the outline view before in PowerPoint. It's kind of weird. I've used it for a while, but explored that, looked at it. And if you look, all my writing does show up on here. Now, the only problem is when I do a PowerPoint, especially in person, I leave some blanks in my PowerPoint because they're kind of like my notes for my students as well. And I'll fill these in as I'm teaching the course. I'll say, all right, here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here's what it is. And that's good for, an in-person setting. And even an online setting where I can write it in as we go, that could be okay. But for a student who has any sort of visual impairment or a disability where they may be coming back to look at this later as their notes, or they may want to use a speech software to come through and read for them what's going on, they're not going to have any idea what's supposed to be in these blanks. Even if I write it in, I don't think the speech software is advanced enough to read what I wrote down for 1, 2, 3, and 4 about the different kinds of conic sections. So because of that, that is one issue I saw with the accessibility. If I wanted to use this in that setting, I'd probably need to go through and actually fill in all the blanks and maybe have them kind of pop up as PowerPoint things so I can still make that emphasis as we talk about each one, have it appear. But that way it could also be read to the students using the speech software. So this is the outline mode. Again, all these things tend to show up here. Another thing that when I was going through that I noticed here, so the layout I did actually choose, and I didn't change anything. I always choose the pre-designed PowerPoint graphics or the layouts. I didn't know that that was a best practice. I just think that those look the nicest. So this is a pre-designed PowerPoint layout. So I guess that doesn't mess with the softwares that read it as much. So I did do that. So there's one thing I did well. But there are some other issues when I was going through here, like the links here. If you look at my link, they want you to have a descriptive link, so a link that kind of tells the students what they're seeing. So my link is literally just the address, the www dot whatever it is, and it doesn't give you a great idea of what you're doing. In fact, this is kind of an activity I have my students do. We kind of do it together. And if I were a student on my own, I would have no idea what the activity is. In fact, if you read it right now, do you have any idea what the activity is? So a student, the thing starts reading, and they have they'll know it's a link because it starts reading a website, but they won't know what they're supposed to do with the link, what's supposed to happen. So it's not a very descriptive link. It's not very helpful. Another thing, too, that I noticed is the pictures. I think this slide is a picture. I did not add any text to these pictures. So if you right-click here, you're supposed to go to the format the picture, and you can go on over to, I think it's under, it's not there. I think it's under one of these settings. We'll have the alt text. So here it is. Actually, I already clicked on it. It was there. But you should add a title and a description so that the student who's visually impaired can get a good understanding of what the picture is or what they're supposed to be looking at. And I don't have any sort of description on there. I actually didn't know that was a feature, so a student wouldn't have any idea that there was a picture there and just keep moving on. You will notice, for the most part, the layout of my slides. I think the reader, it'll make sense. Everything's pretty much in order of how I want it read. I don't mess around too much with the different animations and things, so I don't have many things that would be out of order from where I want them. I also think that for the most part, the colors, I tend to try to keep my colors as varied as possible. I know that color blindness is something that some students have, so I tend to just use black and white for the most part, just keep it simple. Sometimes I add some color in for some focus. And here I do use some reds and greens, so this picture actually would probably be an issue for somebody who's colorblind. I'd probably want to look at that and maybe replace it with something else or draw my own picture. I know I got that from offline. Okay, but for the most part, I do try to think about those kind of things. You can see there's another one from that same picture series I got it from. So some red and green is a little unfortunate there. But for the most part, I try to keep those color selections so that it would be handicap accessible for students who might have a visual impairment. I do see the link, again, another issue, is that the link hyperlink color is a light green, kind of an ugly green color, which might not be the most easily readable. So that's another issue, again, with that link that I would need to fix. One of the biggest issues, though, that I saw from just reading in the book and then looking at the kind of list online about what the accessibility, what we should be doing with our online assignments, is that math in a PowerPoint is not online accessible. I think that was one of the standards for PowerPoint, is math is not accessible. And I'm assuming the reason why it says that is because when you go to do equation editor, so these are written in equation editor. I think in some of these other ones you can see this is written in equation editor. This is all math so that the students can see exactly how it's supposed to look. I don't think that the software actually reads those. So I don't think the software actually reads it. I think it's a hard time reading that. Not to mention the fact that, in this, I am assuming this would be a later on in the course kind of thing. And one of the things it did talk about in some of the text was make sure your students are familiar with all your symbols, make sure you visually explain the symbols, show them things like that. And I would assume at this point in the course, most of this stuff that I'm talking about would be things that I would have already done with students and explained to them what it means by the time they're taking this algebra course. But again, those students who are visually impaired or are relying on a reader, they have no idea that there's an equation here. They don't know what the example would be. Find the focus of a parabola whose equation is the student can't solve the problem. So that's obviously an issue, and that's something where I would either need to make my own voiceover for students, or have to think of some other ways or some other options to give students to be able to access this information, because obviously I can't just not teach them math. That's the whole goal of what I would be doing. So maybe a PowerPoint wouldn't be the best way and have to look for other things. And that's really the big thing I got out of the readings, is that you want to give students as many options as possible to access these things. You want to not only make the thing that you're using be accessible through how you design it, how it would read through, and all those sorts of things, but also just give students all the tools that they need to get at whatever they need, whatever they want out of it. So in addition to this, I could give my students just an accessible worksheet that has the problems on there. I could give them a video of me reading them the problems and walking them through some examples and then reading them what they need to do. And these would be some supplemental things I could add in here. If you notice, I don't have any videos in this PowerPoint as we kind of, scroll through here. Okay, there's no videos in here to help explain anything. And then an accessible classroom, I think it would be important for at least some of these slides to have me video showing, hey, here's how you do this, so that a student, even if they're not a student who has an impairment and needs extra assistance, even if it's just another student that comes in later and looks at this information or goes back and looks at it for notes, that they kind of get an idea about what's going on. Give them that kind of accessibility to this material even later. So I think those are all important things to look at when I'm looking at this, and it's definitely eye-opening to me. I mean, I got to see a couple new things you can do with PowerPoint, which I've been using PowerPoint my whole life. I'm kind of surprised there's things I didn't know you could do. But now that I've seen these things, I can really see how I can make it more accessible for a student if I ever were to teach an online course, so that all students could get what they wanted out of this material. So that's kind of my overview of this PowerPoint. Thank you for watching.